Welcome, welcome, one and all. It is I, truly the dumbest, but you knew that. What you didn't know, though, are my thoughts on the 9.2.0 patch notes. Now, of course, if you've been in the community for even the slightest bit of a second this past week, you would know that these patch notes are not very favorable. In fact, they're so unfavorable for most of the community that half of them already quit. Now, I believe that is the biggest overreaction that you could possibly give to patch notes for the patch or pre-patch patch notes, which is that not even the actual PTB, you give the patch notes before the PTB and you're quitting the game. That's ridiculous. Because let's be real, there's an 80% chance that none of this goes live. So why don't you take a step back and take a deep breath while I give my thoughts on this patch. Now, first off, I want to say I like this patch. I actually think that for the most part, this patch is pretty good. I mean, not in execution, in concept. In concept, it's very good. In execution, it's whatever. But we're going to get into why I think it's whatever. Starting off with the new killer, the Krasue, or the Kraus, as I will call it, because I am too white to pronounce things properly. First and foremost, I think this killer is quite a bit of fun. I think that it's a bit clunky, but I think it's fun. I think she's a good killer. Not good enough to be part of the anti-tunneling change, or the anti-tunneling specifics, but I think it's fun. I think it's good, and I think it's a fairly unique killer. That being said, of course, I do have problems with it. First and foremost, I do not love the intestinal whip. Now, the intestinal whip, I'll put some gameplay up here, maybe, depending on how lazy I am editing-wise. You'll see that it looks like it should be an M1, because it uses your M1 button, your whatever your basic attack is. Mine is obviously left mouse button. It uses the M1 button, so you would think it functions similar to an M1, but it doesn't. It actually functions more like a Dracula wolf pounce, if that makes sense. And I don't think that feels good. I think for the most part, my biggest problem with the intestinal whip, it feels very fucking clunky, like absurdly clunky. To be able to use it, the lunge in a way that it's effective around loops, you have to like look up and then to the left and then down a little bit and then up again. It's a whole system. It's ridiculous. I think it's very clunky. I think whatever physics they're using for it is not good. I think personally, if I would make a change to it, I would just make it a normal M1. Maybe give it an increased lunge range by base kit. Beyond that, though, with the intestinal whip, I don't like how hard it is to infect people with it. Right now, it takes 3 hits just to get to the damaging portion if you're using intestinal whip. Now, I think that's fine, because it's obvious that they want people to use the killer's regurgitate to infect people. That being said, though, I still think it's too weak. I think it should take 2 hits before you can damage somebody with the leech. This might just be me, though. I think it's mostly fine if we're to keep it the way it is, but it's just kind of iffy, kind of weak. Other than that, the power transition from the human or the regular full body to the head. Oh, no, sorry, other way around. The head to the human body, I think, or head form to body form. That's what it's fucking called. Going from head form to body form, I think it's too clunky. I think it takes too long. I think you're slowed down way too much. I would cut that, honestly, probably in half. Maybe that's a little bit overkill, but I do think it needs to be cut down for sure. If it were to be cut down, I don't think it'd actually be that bad at all. I think it'd be pretty nice. But right now, it just feels too clunky. It feels similar to... It feels like what old Twins used to feel like, but worse. It feels worse than old Twins, which I think is a bad thing if you're feeling worse than Twins, because it's Twins. And that's not a good thing, as we all know. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I actually don't have any other problems with the killer. Just those couple of things, and then maybe the glowing fungus. I'm sure the second I stop recording this, though, there's going to be like 4 different things I didn't like about it. But primarily, the main problem I had was the intestinal whip. It feels bad. It doesn't play well. It's too clunky. And I feel like its range is really bad. That's the other thing. Its range is not great. Other than that, though, perfectly fine with the killer. So we're going to move on to the perks for the Krasue, or the Krauser. First one, Ravenous. When you hook a survivor for the first time, gain 1 token, up to 4. When you have all 4 tokens, all survivors scream and gain exposed for 60 seconds. Pretty good perk, actually. I think it's going to be somewhat niche. I don't think it's going to be like, use it on anybody, you can get value out of it. I think it's good. I think it's fun. I think on killers that can use their M1 effectively, or at all, it's going to be a good time. No notes, really. Can't say the same for Wandering Eye. Wandering Eye, whenever you start chasing a survivor, reveal the auras of all other injured survivors within 16 meters for 5 seconds. This perk has a cooldown of 30 seconds. Firstly, this is too short of range. I think it should be around 20 to 24 meters, more so than just 16. I think, like I said, 16 is way too short. That's basically nothing. I think 20 would probably be the safe range to put it in. I would put it to 24, but I'd also do that with Awakened Awareness, and of course, Awakened Awareness got nerfed before it even got released. So maybe it's not good, or maybe 24 would be too strong. I don't know. I do think 16 is too short, though, no matter what. I also feel like a 30-second cooldown is a tad bit overkill. I think maybe 20 to 15 would be nicer, but that's like the least problem of all the problems on this perk. This perk as a whole is just not great. Too niche. You might be able to get use out of it on the S tier killers. That is, of course, once again, if the range requirement doesn't fuck you over. As for the last perk, Overture of Doom, it's okay. I actually don't hate it. I think it's pretty niche. Because it's not, it being a hex alone kind of weakens it quite a bit. But I think it's all right as is. I said maybe buff. I'm not sure what you could buff. Maybe you have it curse 2 generators at a time rather than 1. But other than that, I really don't know. I think it's fine if it were to release as is. Maybe you can extend the duration like 30 or 40, 45 seconds. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything to do with this one. So anyway, that's my thought for the killer perks. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the big portion of this PTV, which is the anti-tunneling and anti-slugging reduction. First off, with the anti-tunneling reduction, I'm going to go over the Survivor and Killer effects, my thoughts on them. First and foremost, Survivor effects, I think across the board is way overtuned. I do not think 90% of this is bad. I actually think a solid amount of it is pretty good. I like the 10% haste. I like the elusive. I like the no collision. I like the killer's aura. I mean, I don't love the killer's aura, but it's not necessary. I don't have a problem with it. And I also kind of like the immunity to AFK crows. Other than that, I do not like, first off, the duration. 30 seconds is way too fucking much. Especially considering you're getting the endurance status effect still. I think 30 seconds is way overkill. I think 15 or 20 seconds would be fine. But even then, you have borrow time, which extends all of these effects by 12 seconds at max. So that gives you 42 seconds of endurance as is. Or it can give you 32, depending if you were to go with my changes. Nonetheless, though, 30 seconds, way too long. Especially with borrow time, like I just said. It can give you basically like a like a young adult version of current off the record, and I think current off the record's a really unhealthy perk. Mainly, once again, for the endurance. If it was 30 seconds and you took away the endurance, I actually think 30 seconds would be fine. But endurance, I do believe, is a pretty necessary addition to this. So I think 15 to 20 seconds would be fine. And it's not like, 30 seconds will help the S tier killer not be able to benefit as much. That's just wrong. The S tier killers are going to be able to catch up after hitting a survivor with endurance super easy, so it doesn't matter. I think all this does for the 30 seconds of endurance is just fuck over the bottom tier killers. So, nonetheless, 30 seconds, too much. I think it should be 15 or 20. My only other problem with the survivor effects is the immunity to killer instinct. I believe, personally, that killer instinct is one of those things that should not be suppressed, considering how often it ties into powers. Even if it's just like you don't get immediate information from, or even if you don't get like an immediate bonus from the killer instinct of most killer powers, it's still information. It's still macro information, and I think macro information is a very important thing to have as killer. I think it's something that you should have at all times. Killer instinct is something you should have at all times, not permanent macro information. But I think killer instinct is an important part of killer power. I do not think it should be suppressed. Other than that, I'm fine with all these unhooked changes. Even though it is a absolute fuck ton of changes, I think for the most part it's fine, other than those two things I talked about. Moving on to the next part, the hook bonuses, or the tunneling reduction, is the hook bonuses for killer. I think that it's a little bit undertuned, personally. The first thing I have a problem with, I do not think Kursui or the Krauser should be part of the top 6 S tier echelon. She's not that strong. I would say she's barely top 10 at best. So If you were to put a 6th killer in there, it would make more sense for it to be Singularity in my mind. But I don't think you should give Singularity that, that reduction. Nonetheless, though, Kursui should also not be a part of it. Other than that, I don't really know what you could possibly do to increase this for killer. I'm not that creative. My creativity only lasts or only goes so far. A little something to add though for these, which it took me a long time to realize. With the new generator changes, if the generator is on fire, that means you have that 20% active, which took me forever to realize. And that's a cool thing. I actually like the little generator visual changes they made. It's very nice, very fun. Tunneling penalties. I have a lot of notes on this ones. The first one, when a survivor dies to a hook action or mori before 6 total hook states, the remaining survivors gain 25% repair bonus. Believe it or not, my problem is not with the 25% repair bonus speed. I actually don't think that's really that big of a problem in the grand scheme of things. What I do have a problem with is that little 6 right there. I think that 6 should be a 4 or 5, probably a 5. In an ideal world, it'd be 4, but realistically, it should be 5. The reason why I think it should be 5 is because you can get a kill without directly tunneling a survivor. You get a fresh hook, then another fresh hook, then a second hook, then a fresh hook, then the death hook. I think 5 is just the perfect amount because it's still enough where you can't just get one hook and then tunnel the guy out. It's enough where you are still required to hook unique people while also building towards pressure throughout the early and mid game. I think that's just the biggest problem with this, is it doesn't allow you to truly pressure the survivors throughout the game. Because, you can go through the whole game and you get like 4 hooks and you have one guy on death hook, but you can't kill him because if you do, or then they get the 25% repair bonus. So like there's 2 gens left, that's just going to fucking fly. So those 3 kills aren't going to mean anything and you won't be able to mount a comeback. I don't know if that made sense. I said that really fast. I hope that makes sense. I don't think... for the second bullet point, when a survivor that has previously hooked is killed or sacrificed, I can't read. The killer loses the ability to block, damage, or regress generators by any means. According to my sources, my tall Italian friend Matteo, this is a 40-second thing. From my gameplay, I don't think it's 40 seconds. I think this is for the rest of the game. I think this is a tad bit overkill. I think it should have a timer of 40 seconds-ish, maybe even a minute if you want to be super generous, or you can even have it so it only disappears after the next generator pop. Nonetheless, though, I think this is way too aggressive a change on top of every other change that we've mentioned, and the next one that still hasn't been mentioned, or has been mentioned on accident. But I think it's a lot. I think it's very overkill. I think just all of it together is a bit overkill, but all of it as is not bad, if that makes sense. And on top of all that, I think they should have a system in place to deactivate all this once you get to a certain point in the game. Like, I think if there's 1 gen completed, or there's 1 gen left, and there are still like 3 survivors in play, or like 9 hooks in or something like that, that it should all disable. Just the tunneling penalties thing. I think that by that point in the end game, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it would still be helpful. So I think there should be some sort of system to disable this perk or disable these penalties once you reach the end of the game before all the generators are complete. Moving on, though, to the last portion of the anti-tunneling is the hook status update. Now, I do have problems with this. This is actually the one that I'm the most petty about. First of all, I think this is an unneeded change. I think that on top of all the changes already in this, super unnecessary. Super overkill, if you will. But as is not terrible. It's a bit overtuned, like most of this is, which I think it's good that it's overtuned because it allows behavior to, adjust it at will. The biggest thing I have with it is, actual balance-wise, I think it's too long. The hook status in HUD revealed, or the delay between getting or notified when a survivor's unhooked, I think it should be 5 seconds. 10 seconds is just too much. 10 seconds could allow the survivor in most cases to get fully healed before you even know that they're unhooked. And I think that's overkill. I think 5 seconds is the perfect amount because it'll notify you It won't notify you in time for you to be able to stop the heal, but it'll notify you before the heal has happened. So, yeah, 5 seconds. I think that would be the sweet spot for that. 10 seconds is too long. On top of that, this is actually not balance-wise, but I think it looks ugly. I'll have the gameplay up of what it looks like right now. I think it's ugly when it's covered, and then I think it is not well presented once the effect has taken place. So what I would do, personally, I would take the little bubble effect that goes over the hook states, and I would just put it over the survivor portrait. And I would do that for when they're hooked as well. Just cover the survivor portrait, keep the name, keep the hook status, keep all that. It doesn't need to be blocked, and once again, it just looks ugly. If you put it just at the survivor portrait, I mean, you have this whole black bubble behind, this whole black silhouette behind the portraits as a whole. You might as well use it. I think if you had all of that go there, it would look fine. And you can even have it so you can have a little bonus effect. The more hooks they get, the more on fire it is or something like that. Just a little thought. But other than that, that's all my thoughts for the anti-tunneling reduction. I actually don't, like I said, I don't think it's that horrible of a change in concept. In execution, it's overtuned, but it can be very easily fixed to be not as oppressive. So, yeah. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the slugging reduction update. First and foremost, I'm going to go ahead with the quality of life stuff because it's a bit easier to explain. I do not like base kit tenacity, and I do not like the auto recover. I think having both is too much. I think one or the other, and personally, I would choose base kit tenacity over the base kit auto recover, because one thing that about the down state that I think is actually interesting about being in the down state is you have to choose whether you can recover the second you're downed or you move over to a pallet so you can get pallet saved or flashlight stunned or whatever. That is completely gone with this change because it'll allow you to recover and move at the same time. And on top of that, of course, you get base kit tenacity. So you're literally like, there's no thoughts about being slugged. You get downed, or not even get slugged, just being downed. You get down and then you just crawl to a pallet. There's no thought. There's no thoughts. Crawl the pallet. And I think that's kind of lame. I mean, I'm sure I know it feels better gameplay wise. Like it feels nicer. But I just think I think it's too much, and I think it kind of takes away that little bit of decision making that you have while you're slugged. Other than that, for the self-recovery thing, I do have thoughts on it. Firstly, I actually think 90 seconds is a fine amount. Maybe you can increase it to like 100, 110, but I think 90 seconds, if it were to release, is not horrible. What I do have a problem with, though, is this little snippet. Once the resolve bar is full, the survivors gain the ability to pick themselves up from the dying state after fully recovering, and they have confirmed that this is for the rest of the game. And of course, this, as the PTB says, for the rest of the game. What I think they should do to make this actually make sense and be a little more fair, I think that every time they pick themselves up, their timer should reduce by 15 seconds. So it starts off with 90, then you get picked up, and now it's 75. You get picked up again, 60, 45, 30. Now, what this does is it doesn't punish the killers for being unable to hook survivors due to like sabotaging hooks or survivors crowding you while you're out of pallet. I think it doesn't punish them as much as it should for situations like that. But what it does is it punishes people who are constantly slugging the survivor. So if they're just repeatedly downing them and leaving them on the ground, they'll be able to get up faster and faster each time. So it has less of an impact. You can even make it 20 seconds. You can take it from 90 to 70 to 50 to 30. That would be fine. I just think there should be more of a system in place to prevent this from being abused by survivor teams, because it absolutely can be. This is something similar to the endurance for the anti-tunneling that can be very easily abused by survivors if they're smart enough and even remotely coordinated. So I think there should be some sort of backup system to make sure that it can't be. Other than that, though, that's it for the slugging update. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part, which is the palette density quality of life update. Now, at a first glance, as the self-proclaimed map guy of Dead by Daylight, at first glance, you see this and you're like, what the fuck are they thinking? What is this? Affected Realms, Macmillan Estate? That's unneeded. Macmillan Estate. The good ones are good. The bad ones are really bad. They don't need changes. Or they don't need minor, like, palette changes. They need overhauls. Autohaven Wreckers. But that's one of the worst realms of the game. Coldwind, but they just spent so much time reworking Coldwind. Crotus Pren? Haddonfield needs the changes. Backwater? Red Forest? Okay, what are they thinking? What are they thinking changing these maps? Half of these maps don't need changes. But then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go look at the maps. I'm gonna go see what changed about most of these maps. Because when I was doing the Krasue video, I actually noticed that Backwater Swamp, it definitely got a couple of changes. It got little add-ons, it got changed the outsides. I was like, wait a second, they're actually changing quite a bit of things. Then I realized Pale Rose got a couple very minor, not barely existent changes, but it got changes. So I was like, so they're changing more than just the pallet spawns. They're adding things. They're changing things. The boat now spawns at new angles. How fucking crazy is that? And then, oh my god, and then I started to queue into the other maps. I went, let me tell you. Sheltered Woods, Torment Creek, you know what they did? They didn't just change pallet spawns. They shaved a little bit off the top. That's right, they gave it a fade. Yeah, they cut off the edges of the maps a little bit, not a whole lot. I forgot to get gameplay of Sheltered Woods, and I'm too lazy to get gameplay of it now. But if you look at the gameplay I have of Torment Creek, they don't have that back half behind the main building anymore. I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is crazy. And then I went to Ron Fields. And you know what they did? They shrank the cornfield in the center. So now there's less space between the shack and all the pallets around it. They also had a bunch of pallets in the cornfield. But that's not as much of an impact as I'm talking about. And then, oh boy, let me tell you. And then the scariest map, the one that I was like, why would they fucking do this? I booted in. Holy shit. They overhauled Disturbed Ward. Holy fucking shit. First off, as you can see from the gameplay, they took the hedges, like the 3 separate hedge tiles, 1 tile now. Holy fuck. They take to the left of the entrance, there's no more pallets there. There's no more loot. That has been completely cut out. Completely cut out. Holy shit. And then you go to the left side of the map, where there's that little dick that extends out, that has 2 loops, just 1 now. Holy shit. They cut down this map size by solid, I think, 4 tiles. Like, insane changes. Absolutely insane. They also completely changed up the filler spawns around the main building in front of Shack. There's now 1 less filler on the right side of it. And then they changed the consistency of the left side to be a little less stronger. They completely overhauled this map. I mean, not completely, obviously, it's still mostly the same. Main building still sucks ass. But they removed the pallet spawn for main building. Now it's a fixed 3 pallets at all times, rather than a chance of having 4 or 5, which is absolutely crazy. I cannot believe it, but I'm going to say it. I think Disturbed Ward might end up being a better map than Father Campbell's Chapel now, which is crazy to say. But they legitimately changed it very significantly and very well. I think it's still going to be a good map to play on for Survivor, but it's going to be so much nicer for Killer. So thank you for that behavior. I dedicated 4 minutes to just building up to that. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly move on because this video is getting pretty long. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to blow through the Killer changes because I do have a lot of thoughts on them, but I also feel like it's not a whole lot to go over. First and foremost, the Michael change. Unlike most individuals, I really like this change. I think, sure, thematically speaking, a long lunge doesn't make sense for Michael. Who gives a fuck, right? Vecna could literally kill you by looking at you, and he's reduced to dropping skeletons on your fat ass. Who cares? Freddy has nothing to do with Freddy. Who cares? It's not about how straight up of a direct adaptation. It's about how they take the adaptation and modify it to fit within Dead by Daylight, and I think they did a great job with Michael here. I mean, of course, beforehand, Michael was probably the best adapted killer in the game, besides Pinhead, but even then, he's just an M1 killer. Where I can't believe people are going to sit here and pretend like that new Michael is more boring than current Michael. Current Michael is just an M1 killer. That is all he is. So let's not pretend like he's any less interesting. That being said, though, for the actual changes, I do declare that after playing him for a bit, Pursuer mode is completely unnecessary. I do not think Pursuer mode needs to exist. While I was playing Michael, there was never a time in which I switched to Pursuer mode besides like catching up to survivors. But even then, I only caught up to survivors to stalk them to get into tier 3. I think personally, they could remove Pursuer mode and it'd be perfectly fine. I think if they removed Pursuer mode and then gave minor buffs to Stalker mode and Evil Incarnate mode, overall, Pursuer mode is not necessary. I don't ever see people using this over just stalking people from a distance, or stalking people and then going straight into tier 3. It also goes really fast stalking now, especially with add-ons. So I once again, I just don't think it's that necessary. On top of that, Evil Incarnate mode, I almost said Evil Incarnate 3. Evil Incarnate mode, I think is a little undertuned. I think it could use some buffs. I think the main thing is I think they should decrease the Slaughtering Strike recharge time. So like the cooldown after you hit someone or use the attack, 6 seconds is a bit much. I think 4 seconds would make a bit more sense. Maybe 5 if they're scared of it being strong, which I don't think it could be that strong. And then on top of Slaughtering Strike, I think they should also decrease the charge time for it. I think the charge time is a bit I think it's 2 seconds. I think 2 seconds is a bit too long to get the max charge. I think maybe 1.5 would be nice. Maybe 1.75. I just think 2 seconds feels a bit clunky. And then on top of all of that, Slaughtering Strike is a stupid name. They should change that name. But that's all I have for Michael's changes. I think across the board, besides those few things, he's pretty good. I don't have any thoughts on his add-ons because I think for the most part his add-ons are boring as shit. Nonetheless, though, I think Michael could go live as is and he'd be perfectly fine. Moving on to the rest of the killer changes. The unknown updates, pretty good. I thought that they were going to nerf him. I'm going to be honest. When I read the patch notes, it was a buff, the reduced movement speed recovery. That's fine. I think everything they did here was fine. I still think Unknown could maybe use a little bit. I think mainly he could use an add-on update. I feel like a lot of his add-ons are really boring. Other than that, I don't play enough Unknown. I'm not good enough at Unknown. So, moving on to a killer that I am good with, and a killer that I have a lot of time in, Dracula. His changes bother me. I do think it's fair that his add-ons across the board are being nerfed. He is a very strong killer. I think he's a bit overkill, but I do understand why they would do that. What I mainly have a problem with is his base kit. Firstly, I do think the nerfs to Wolf form is unnecessary. I understand that they want all the forms to kind of be in line with each other, so they're all usable, but you're never going to be using Vampire form as the primary form. Wolf form is just... And I don't see the problem with Wolf form being the primary form. It's a far more interesting and unique form than Vampire form. So I don't think nerfing Wolf form... I don't think nerfing any aspect of his kit is really that necessary, because he's not that strong. As for Vampire form, I don't think any of these changes are good. I do not understand why they decreased the cooldown of Hellfire Pillars by at all. I think it's fine as is. 10 seconds is perfectly fine cooldown. The increased number of Hellfire Pillars is fine, but I still don't think it's necessary. And I also don't like the fact that both of his nerfs? Yeah, I don't like either of his nerfs either. It just... What they're trying to do is they're trying to make you use Hellfire more, but they're trying to punish you for using Hellfire more, which I think is fucking stupid. I think what they should have done is, instead of any of these changes, I think all these changes can be reverted. I think they should increase the spawn rate of the Hellfire Pillars, and then I think they should increase the movement speed recovery after activating Hellfire, which is the opposite of what they did here. And I don't think they need to do either of that at all. I don't think any of these changes are necessary. Dracula is a strong killer, but he's not an overpowered killer. I think he's fine as is. The bat form movement friction thing is nice, though. That is the one thing I do think is fine to keep. Everything else, I don't like it. I don't think they should change any of it. Even his add-ons. His add-ons, of course, like I said, he's strong, but I don't think they don't need to nerf all of his add-ons. Nonetheless, though, I'm going to move on to the next 3 set of changes, which I think are mostly good, except for Oni's. I think Oni should get a lot more than this. I think Oni should have an overhaul to his passive blood gain, considering the fact that slugging is now, if this goes live, will not be a viable strategy for him. I do think that he should be... I think his passive regen on his blood should be much stronger, and actually, by much stronger, I mean legitimately a thing. It's basically not a thing now. Nonetheless, though, I don't play enough Oni to give like true numbers or stuff. I do think he needs more buffs. On top of that, I think Sadako should also be looked at if these changes go to live. Other than that, I don't have a problem with the Clown and Ghoul changes. They needed to be changed. So good for that. And finally, we have the killer perk updates. Now, I don't care about most of this stuff. All Shaking Thunder, Nurses Calling, Dark Arrogance. I don't care about any of that. I'm going to go over the very specific things I care about. First and foremost, Barbecue and Chili rework. After hooking all survivors once, increase the base generator damage by 5%. Now, at first, I was like, that's pretty bad. I used it now, and I'm thinking, hey, that's pretty good. It is funny to me, though, that over the course of a year, every single one of Bubba's teachables has been entirely reworked. Not a single one of them are the same as they used to be, which I find, once again, to be funny. I do actually, there is one thing that keeps bothering me about Barbecue and Chili. You don't get the token system that you do with any other perk like this. I think it would be nice just for visual feedback to get that little one, or even if like it fills up 1/4 of the way red or something like that, like other perks. I think there should be some kind of visual feedback for it. I don't know if they were intending on doing that and they didn't get done in time. But other than that, I actually think the change is good. I think it's a pretty good perk, especially for endgame. So, no complaints. Second perk, Dear Stalker. When a survivor sees your aura, you see their aura. Every 30 seconds, reveal your aura to the survivor with the lowest chase time. Pretty good. It's basically old Object of Obsession, which is very interesting. I think it plays well. I think it's a pretty good form of consistent information for the killer. Once again, no thoughts. Definitely a buff. Dear Stalker as it was really fucking lame. For the third perk. Ruin, baby. We back. We fucking back. Increase the generator regression to 150%. We're so back, baby. I find it funny that they decided to buff Ruin in a patch that really heavily leans towards gen kicking. But other than that, Ruin's back, baby. Hell yeah. Moving on from W changes, we have two bad changes. First and foremost, we have Church Hook Pain Resonance. They nerfed it again. Highly unnecessary, in my opinion. Especially considering how many nerfs killers got. If anything, I think they should be buffing Pain Res to 25 again. 12 is nothing. 12 is genuinely useless. Like, it's a horrible change, very bad change, very unnecessary change. On top of that, the change to Eruption, I also think is a very bad change. Increase the generator regression, that's Ruin. And decreases the generator progress loss to 5% was 10. Eruption was already made super niche with the recent patches. Once again, I think they should be buffing Eruption, considering how much Survivor is getting. I do not think we should be nerfing gen regression perks, except for Pop. Pop is a fair one to nerf. But everything else, I think, should be getting buffs in some way, shape, or form. Finally, though, for 3 perk changes that I actually like a lot, first of which, Oppression. I have been an Oppression defender since I got twins, which I don't remember when that was. But I liked Oppression when it was awful. I like it now, and I think this is an even better change to make it even more useful. Once again, buffing bad gen regression. I do think that was I think this is a good change. I think 4 gens is a crazy amount, and that's going to give you great information with surveillance. I like this change a lot. I like this change. Very good. Second change that I like, Septic Touch. I still don't think it's going to be very useful. I think they should change the range requirement, but I think, was it tripling? Yeah, tripling the duration, the blindness, and exhausted. Pretty good. That's a good change. I like that they're buffing random perks that nobody uses. They should be doing that rather than nerfing the good perks. So, we have more perks to use rather than less. Finally, they are buffing Ultimate Weapon again, which is nice. Increases the range of when opening a locker to 40 meters, and then reduce the cooldown to 45 seconds. Very nice. I think they should lower the cooldown to 30 seconds, but I'm not going to complain. Ultimate Weapon was one of my favorite perks when Xenomorph first released, and then it just had to go and become popular, and then got mega nerfed into the ground. Nonetheless, though, I appreciate it. I've used this a couple times, and I appreciate that it's actually useful once again. Other than that, that's all I have to say on this PTB. Everything else, I don't care. I don't play Survivor. Can't give my thoughts on the perk changes. The other killer perk changes in this patch are whatever. Leverage is somewhat interesting, but Leverage is a boring perk to play with. And then everything else, it's just there. Bug fixes, I would like to speak on the bug fixes because there's a lot of good shit in here that should have been done a while ago. So I appreciate that they're finally changing a lot of this. Mainly anything to do with the Knight is very nice, because I like the Knight right now, but he sucks because he's so buggy. But who's to say any of this is gonna work? They say they fix bugs all the time and they never do. that's pretty much it for my thoughts on these patch notes. Like I said, I think with quite a few touch-ups to the tunneling and slugging thing, and the killer, and the Kursue, I think this patch could be really good. I think we could take this patch from doom and gloom to very good, and just a few little tweaks. So that's all for my thoughts. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here because this video is probably gonna be like 45 minutes long. So, adios.